This podcast is sponsored by Ramp. Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. Most corporate credit cards offer points as incentives, but those points amount to less than their worth in real cash value. Ramp's business cards offer you cash back, real money in your pocket. Plus, you control who spends what with each vendor. And Ramp's software collects and verifies receipts automatically, which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. And now get $250 when you join Ramp for free. Just go to ramp.com/easy. Ramp.com/easy. RAMP.com/easy.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members of FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
And we are back here on the Northland Sports Page. Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook, a little Machine Head by Bush. I think our next guest is familiar with that as intro music.
Yeah, he ought to be. We've talked 100 times about walk-up music, Brian, and in a perfect world, what would our walk-up music be, or our bullpen song coming in, and now we have somebody that can actually talk about what goes into the choice. That may
not be the topic of choice today, but it might come up as well, because intro music is supposed to get you excited. We've been excited about this guy for a while.
Absolutely. It's really fun when you get to talk to somebody, for the first time and introduce our guest to the radio show and how we do some things, and so it should be fun.
So introducing him might be the difficult part, because what do you say? Legendary first baseman? Do you say Twins Hall of Famer? Do you say analyst? All the above.
I think you say puck guy.
Well, now in Twins lore, that could get confusing. You say puck, people go a different direction.
That's true.
But he's certainly a hockey fan. Let's bring in Justin Morneau. Justin, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here with us. Yeah, I thought you might like that. You can appreciate that a little bit.
Yeah, that's my era. That lets me know how old I'm getting.
Wow, us too. Don't worry about that. So let's talk about that then. We said we may not have that as a topic, but it springboards right into it. What goes into picking that walk-up music?
Sometimes it's the wife. Sometimes it's the kids. Sometimes it's just a favorite band growing up. For me, we listened to AC/DC in the dressing room before we had the AC/DC live double disc CD that we would listen to. So it was always AC/DC for me when I was coming up to the plate.
So we should have gone that route. We tried, but ain't no noise. We didn't have it available.
No, and that CD's on my wall framed because we've seen that concert maybe once or twice. Justin, have you ever seen him live?
Oh, yeah. That was one of the first concerts I saw. We drove up during spring training, saw him in Tampa.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, it was perfect.
When we were playing back in the day, we brought the Fly on the Wall album into the locker room and played First Blood and got the entire team all cranked up because we drew First Blood.
There we go. Perfect. Speaking of drawing First Blood, the Twins did that in Kansas City back on Thursday. I'm going to do the most Minnesotan thing ever to start. I got to ask you how the weather is, because we had a winter weather advisory overnight. Looks like you're dealing with much better in KC.
Yeah, it's crazy how we can be 5, 6, 7 hours south of the cities, and it's golfed yesterday. It was 72 degrees. It's supposed to be 70 today. It's supposed to be 80 tomorrow.
Wow.
So,
I think if you add up all the temperatures for the week, that might be what Duluth got. Duluth might have gotten to 80, but we have to add up the entire week. We'll see. So let's talk about the 1-0 Minnesota Twins. Good win with a cost. Royce Lewis to the IL, and we're looking at a different Twins team taking the field today.
Yeah, sometimes this game is just so cruel. I mean, it's for a kid who does everything right, takes care of himself, treats people with respect, prepares, does everything to get himself on the field, and then has an incredible opening day, first opening day. Spent parts of 2 years in the big leagues, but goes out there, hits an 0-2 fastball, 98 miles an hour, 420 feet or whatever it was.
Right.
Gets another hit his next time up, and then gets hurt running the bases. It's just crazy to think how cruel this game can be sometimes, because he's given us so many flashes of what he can be when he's healthy, and it's crazy though for somebody who's been through so much how he's able to stay positive. That's the most impressive thing to me. I mean, even his post-game press conference, he's like, you know what, this is just another kind of another bump in the road type deal, and I'm going to just do what I need to do to get back. And when I play, I'm going to go out there and try and help this team win. And it's just incredible to see his attitude. When you go through injuries, especially the amount that he's gone through, it's easy to fall into the feeling sorry for yourself or frustration. And I'm sure he let out some frustration, right after it happened. But when talked to him after, saw him in the lobby yesterday, sitting there with his family, just, he's such a positive kid. I don't know how he does it, but it's his mindset that really separates him from everyone else. And you hope he's back soon. And that means Austin Martin's going to come up and make his major league debut at some point. Not sure if he's going to be in the lineup today or maybe tomorrow, but I'm sure Rocco doesn't want him to sit for too long. But he's a versatile guy, so I think Royce was locked in at third. Now I think you're going to be able to move some parts around. Buxton's going to require some days off in center field, so wouldn't be surprised to see maybe Martin out in center, or the way Rocco likes to move guys around. But I think he's a guy that we got in the Barrios trade and right. Struggled a little bit, but has found himself again, and he looked good in spring training. He's a tremendous athlete. He moves around the field really well. So obviously you're going to miss Royce, and you're going to miss him a ton, but you got to find a way to continue pressing on. And then with a healthy Buxton, Correa looks really good so far. I think those two guys can hopefully carry you and pick up some of the weight you're going to be missing from not having Royce in the lineup.
Justin, you talked about Austin Martin, and one of the questions I had for you is, as a veteran, as a major leaguer, now as a broadcaster, when you're watching rookies or even higher end minor leaguers, what are the tells that they have that lead you to think, now that's a major leaguer? With Martin, it's been weird because
right.
he's
versatile. That's
skills,
all we know.
But they tried to teach him a little bit of power, and he just kind of fell apart. And I'm wondering, when you see a guy like that and you say to yourself, yeah, he's going to make it.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because it's a combination of a lot of things. A lot of it for me is demeanor and, body language. You see, everyone can be a good teammate. Everyone can be happy when things are going well. How do you react to adversity? How do you react to failure? How do you react to, when something doesn't go your way? And I think watching him on the field, watching him go about his business, and then just hearing him talk and seeing the guys, seeing how he interacts with the guys in the clubhouse and everything else. I mean, guys, he's a likable guy. He's a positive guy. He's got good energy. He's just, you can tell the athleticism is there for sure. And he had an advanced approach. He tried to learn something new, and give him credit. He stuck with it. And, hitters, whether we do what we do based on how we get paid is one thing, but, hitters get paid more to hit for power. And he was asked to try and unlock some of that power, maybe pull the ball a little bit more, try and elevate it a little bit more. And he did try it, and he didn't have much success with it, or he struggled with it, and it wasn't meant for him. And he went back to kind of his plan of being disciplined, getting hit by pitches, taking his walks, and providing value in a different way. That today's game revolves around power, but you still need guys who can run the bases, especially with the rule changes. You need athleticism out there, and he's a guy who's going to be able to steal you a base. He's a guy who can go first to third, be able to score on some base hits. I mean, he can do a lot of things, and I think you can tell the separator from guys, the way they can move at full speed, but they appear to be able to slow the game down. I think that's kind of a sort of a contradictory statement, but it's like you can tell a guy, it's almost like they make it look easy, as opposed to they're rushing and they're panicked, and you can see it with some of the younger players. The game kind of speeds up on them, and you end up throwing a ball away because you peek up and the guy's halfway down the line, or he just doesn't have that any of that in him. He looks like he's able to just sort of control the situation and be able to kind of handle everything that's put at him, and it'll be a good test for him first time in the big leagues to see if he's able to slow the game down the way he did in spring training and then the way he knows how.
Brian, it sounds like Justin just described somebody that could have played for Whitey Herzog in about the 1980 St. Louis Cardinal team.
Well, he did say what his era is. I know he's not quite that era, but Justin, as a broadcaster, I need to ask you this. You're supposed to bring how you see the game to the booth. I'm going to flip it. How has it changed in the booth, the way that you see the game from that vantage point?
Yeah, I think the rule changes have changed what we do a little bit with, we have as much time to talk about stuff in between pitches, which is a good thing. The game's moving quicker, but the thing I love to do is break down plays. And I think, it was a lesson that Tom Kelly taught me when I was younger. He said, I was just asking about managing and that kind of thing. And he just said, you watch everything except for the ball. You know where the ball is going. If it's hit to left field, left fielder's going to pick it up. You look at everything else. Where's the shortstop lining up for the cutoff? Where's the right fielder going to back up? Where's where's everybody moving on the field? So you kind of, and especially from that vantage point high behind home plate, you can kind of see the whole field. You can see the plays develop. You can see, if somebody's where they're not supposed to be. And I think that's where, as a broadcaster, that's kind of what I look for is because on the TV kind of follows the ball or follows the runner. And then, my value or what I like to do is point out, yeah, he missed the cutoff man, but why did he miss the cutoff man? Was he late getting over there, in position, or did the guy make a bad throw? Which one was it? So being able to point out the obvious is one thing, but then try and explain the why. Why did the play go wrong? What happened there? Why did the guy run into an out? Or, those sort of things. And that's kind of what's fun for me. We just have a little less time to do it now, but I think the game's better for it, the way it's moving. But yeah, so I think it's kind of those lessons I took from TK and the way he saw the game and the way he managed and the way he, one of the smartest baseball people I've ever been around. I was fortunate to learn the game from him, learn a lot of things. And that was one of those things he taught me is watch everything except for the ball, and you'll see a lot more going on the field.
Yeah, Dave, as a play-by-play guy, I don't think you want me doing that. Watch everything but the ball, but I'm going to go with...
That's what I do.
Right, I'm going to go with something that's a great segue because Dave is an analyst for me when we do different games, but he's talked about, the couple of games that I miss and a different play-by-play guy comes in, a different cadence is tough to get used to. You're now switching your play-by-play partner as Corey moves in for Dick. Have you had to change your cadence at all, or is it just picking up where you left off?
Yeah, we're working together.
Right.
So it's, because he worked with Danny forever too. Right?
Sure.
So he's him and Danny Gladden. We talked about this after. We're as tough on ourselves as anyone could be. So we want, we expect to do well, to do our job well. And I talked about it, and Corey said, I don't think all the years Danny and I worked together, we never stepped on each other. We never cut each other off or talked over each other. And I think that happened to us a couple of times. And it's I'm used to could almost sense when Dick was going to have something to say or kind of let him take over. And same thing for Corey. Corey knew when Danny was going to jump in, and so there is some timing there, and there is some something that you work off each other, and I think that'll come together quickly. I think thankfully in baseball. we work every day pretty much. Right. So, work a series and we'll kind of have that feeling. We worked together a little bit at the start of last year when Dick had COVID. So, we got 6 or 7 games together early, but, the full-time deal is a little bit different. And it's completely different, but at the same time, it's new and it's a different way of looking at the game. And hopefully we'll be able to have that kind of back and forth down pretty good by the end of this Kansas City series. So yeah, it is a challenge and it is something different, but I think, we'll evolve together and we'll work together. And I think the hardest thing for him is the fact that I'll do 70 something games and he's got, 5 analysts that he's got to work with. And I think that's the challenge of, who do you ask questions to, what type of questions, where's their skill set? You're dealing with Perkins, you're dealing with the pitching side. You're dealing with me. It's more on the hitting side and kind of how we see the game. And I think it's a huge skill for the play-by-play guy to be able to kind of pick up who he's working with and then bring out the best in them. And I think Corey's definitely well suited to be able to do that. So it's going to be a different hear or listen for people at home, but at the same time, we're hopefully going to bring you maybe some little different things, but also a positive outlook on what Twins baseball can be, and that's kind of how we hope to do it.
All right, so that entire answer was fantastic, and I know you can't see us, but Dave wouldn't look me in the eye for about 3/4 of it, because when you talked about how, you guys make sure you never step on each other, Dave and I do hockey together, and I'm doing play-by-play like the Micro Machines guy doing turbo pace, and Dave gets to see the puck go in the net and yells goal and steps all over me all the time. So you guys have an art form down cold without question. But I got to ask you this, too. How much as a former first baseman do you just watch that position? Because there might be a merry-go-round of people trying that position this season in Minnesota.
Yeah, I think I get to work with those guys down in spring training. You get to have a little, I don't know if influence, but just got to have some conversations, those guys asking questions. Because, like I said before, I learned how to play first base from Tom Kelly. A lot of help from Al Newman as well. Gardy helped me over there, but TK was the best at teaching people how to play first base, and so I get to pass along a few of those lessons. But yeah, it's through the eyes of whatever position you played. Usually, if you watch the game, you watch it if you were a pitcher, you watch it as a pitcher. If you were a hitter, you put yourself in the batter's box and you go through the at bat. And I think it's funny because I'll see a throw come across from shortstop and I'll say pick it as the ball's, getting released because just, those tens of thousands of throws I took over there, you can see it out of the hand. And
right.
So, yeah, I'm looking at it like I'm playing first base. It's funny how you see the game through where you stood. And but I also was drafted as a catcher. I caught in the minor leagues for a couple of years. And so I enjoy that part of the game too, the sequencing and how you set a hitter up. And, that part of it where, all right, how do we get about last time? Can we go to that pitch again? And that's more where I gravitate towards when I'm watching the game and doing the game, doing the color on the game, just trying to figure out exactly if the guy is going to hang me a changeup 2-1. I'm kind of back in the batter's box going through that at bat with Wallner or with Julian or some of those guys, especially the left-handed hitters. So
right.
That's kind of where I kind of lean when I'm watching a game.
So we are chatting with Justin Morneau. The difficult part is how much longer could we chat with him? Because if we had as much time as we would like, the show might end with Justin Morneau. We got an hour plus to go. But Dave, I know you've got questions galore.
I do. I have a couple of hopefully interesting questions, Justin. One of them is, when you're on the fly, you have to, kind of nutshell the person that you're talking about, whether it be a pitcher or a hitter for the listener. I'm wondering what is kind of your go-to, your favorite stat that you can help pull a guy together in one picture for an audience member who really maybe even doesn't follow baseball. You can see, whether it's a whip or it's something like that, where you can help explain the pitcher using that or hitter using that stat.
I think it depends on each person. The challenge now is we have so many stats and for people who just want to watch the game and know batting average and homers and RBIs, which is completely fine. And then we've got also all the new advanced stats, and it's trying to decipher that and break it down enough where somebody, if they watch one game a week, it doesn't sound like I'm speaking a different language. That's really the challenge now. And I think for me, it's just trying to pick out something exceptional. If a guy has a fastball and it's 92, but he doesn't give up hits, why? Like Joe Ryan, who's going today. His fastball averages somewhere right around league average, but he doesn't give up hits on it. It's his best pitch, and why is that? So he throws from a different arm slot. So just trying to break down something that somebody does well or something exceptional that is kind of out of the ordinary, but also still makes sense and is simple enough to understand, I think. So it's a real challenge of you have to do your homework and you have to kind of understand each player. What does Julian do well? Well, he walks a ton, but that doesn't mean he's just up there taking the first pitch. He has a great eye at the plate. He's got a low chase rate, but also in an 0-0 count, he had 500 last year. I think he was 21 for 42. So there's different ways you can kind of tie it all together. And so for me, it's what's exceptional and then what is still simple enough for people to understand. And I think that's something that is hard to balance in today's game with so many advanced stats and so many numbers to look at and what is relevant. And then also on the same part of it is what are the teams using to evaluate as well? So, if teams aren't using batting average, what are they using? Is it run value for the pitchers, which is a stat that kind of puts a lot of emphasis on when does a guy use a certain pitch? What's the count? What's the situation? A guy who throws a fastball in a 3-2 count with the bases loaded, and he gets it out with it, that provides more value for that pitch. So it's a more advanced stat, but if you kind of take a step back and look at it, you go, okay, well, yeah, this guy uses his fastball in big situations, which is a simple way of, we used to say, you're facing Verlander late in the game. He never wanted to get beat by his second or third best pitch, so you knew he was going to rear back and give you a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. Now they just have a way of putting a value on that. So, you emphasize, pitches in different situations, and teams really use that to evaluate pitchers. What's his best pitch? How can we get more out of this guy? Well, when he throws his slider and he throws it in big counts or big situations, he gets a lot of outs with it, which is basically the way you break it down. So, I mean, it's a long way of answering your question, but it's dependent on each person and each situation and trying to find something that the viewer might find interesting. Sometimes I think if I find it interesting, maybe other people will too, but also keep it simple enough, which is it's a balance. But I think that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. It might have been a long answer, but it was a great answer. Dave, I hope you're taking notes. Can you tell we're talking to an analyst? He's got no shortage of good terminology and good phrases for us.
And it's the thought process,
yes.
Right? That's the one.
Well, that's baseball. Like. That's why baseball has no offseason for us.
That's true.
You get the last call.
All right. So I have like 6 questions, but I'm going to only ask one. Right. And so I'm going to ask it for our audience, right? Right now, Justin, it's still snow on the ground here, and our kids are, practicing their baseball indoors. And I'm wondering if you could talk to parents for just a second. What's something that they can do to help their kids improve on the diamond? Is there something a parent can do to just help that kid out a little?
Try and make it fun would be the number one thing.
Yeah.
I think we're so caught up in trying to make the next professional out of 12-year-olds. And then by the time they're 16, they don't want to play anymore. And I think that's it's kind of like a failure in development, right? We're thinking we're going to set everyone up with a swing coach and we're going to, turn them into a professional. And then it's like, if it's a job from the time you're 12 years old, then it's not really fun. And I think it's a thing I deal with my own kids. It's a challenge. And just to try and find a way to play games, whether it's wiffle ball or a tennis ball game or, trying to hit a ball over the roof in your yard or whatever it is. I mean, there's different ways of doing it. And to let the kids, to understand they're getting their reps and they're developing, but they're having fun doing it by playing games. And I think it's a challenge as a coach, it's a challenge as a parent to just sit there and I think just play catch. I think playing catch is one of the best things you can do with your kids. It's funny, my one of my boys, he's pretty quiet and he doesn't talk much, but we get out there playing catch and all of a sudden he starts to loosen up and we start having conversations. So I think it's a good way to kind of get through to your kids sometimes too. But I think there's the development part of it is, listen, the odds of making it to the big leagues, very slim. It's a dream for everyone and everyone should chase that dream if they want that to be their dream. But at the same time, we want their experience to be positive with the game and we want them to, remain lifelong fans or try and play, old man baseball or whatever they want to do. So and I think that's something we want to, kind of hook them without driving them away. And I think that's the challenge of sports today of not overdoing it and just trying to make, the kids have enough structured practice time, let them have some fun.
You closed it by saying make it fun. You opened it by making it fun. Tell you what, all we can say for this segment is you made it fun. Thank you very, very much for the time.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
That was a blast. I certainly hope we get to do it again. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Justin Morneau. The Twins will take the field in Kansas City for the second time this season. 3:10 first pitch. I didn't get to ask him about the shadows that he hates at 3:10 starts. Maybe that'll be for next time.
Yeah,
he's still on the line. I heard him giggle. We'll have him again later, we hope. This is the Northland Sports Page. Stick around. We will be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Ramp. Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. Most corporate credit cards offer points as incentives, but those points amount to less than their worth in real cash value. Ramp's business cards offer you cash back, real money in your pocket. Plus, you control who spends what with each vendor. And Ramp's software collects and verifies receipts automatically, which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. And now get $250 when you join Ramp for free. Just go to ramp.com/easy. Ramp.com/easy. RAMP.com/easy.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members of FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
We are always looking for a good buy here on the Northland Sports Page. Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook. Hour number 2 continues. We are with you until noon. Speaking of goodbye, we didn't want to say it to Justin Morneau. That was more than fun, Dave Cook.
It was really interesting to hear his take on things. And what we were talking about after, right between the two sections here was how TK influenced all this other stuff that he does. Not just when he played, but listen to how he talks about how he sees the game now as an analyst. I just think it's baseball. The coolest thing about baseball is how history works, right? And we're seeing the game through Tom Kelly's eyes.
It is very interesting. You talk about baseball history, talk about the history that we have within the sport. That helped lead to this interview as well, because I got to give another shout out. I got to give a shout out to Jeff Lottie, who Saints Scholastic Hall of Famer for good reason, former Duluth Superior Duke. I did play-by-play for his career there. We had way too much fun there together. We always have way too much fun. He just made this show way too much fun.
Yeah, no, that was great. You know, we laugh about the fact that 7 years ago, if I'd have told you had Justin Morneau in your phone, you'd have thought I was crazy.
I showed you that this morning, and you said, I'm sure you have other people in your phone with the initials JM, and of course I can tell you a bunch. I do, but I showed you the contact info, and you said, in your phone, that looks pretty good.
Yeah, that looks pretty good.
Justin Morneau was very good today. Speaking of very good, we have very good, if not even great, sponsors. We want to give them some love right now, too.
And rewritten. It's much cleaner now.
The penmanship and the crossing out is stopped.
Yes. Arola Architecture Studio, Hoops Brewing, Mike Regan at Christensen Group Insurance, the Blackwoods Group, including locations on London Road. We have Blackwater, Downtown, Tavern on the Hill, in Proctor, and in Two Harbors. Mount Royal Bottle Shop, Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, Comfort Systems of Duluth, Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai, Advantage Emblem and Screen Printing, OAR Holdings, and Kraus Heating and Cooling, your Carrier HVAC authorized dealer.
I don't know what it was with the rewriting of that, if you can like your own brand a little bit more or read your own writing better, but you did fantastic right there. You always do well, but it seemed even better. The new and improved sponsorship list.
Yes, I was stretching beforehand, Brian. I was limber.
There's a lot of times you've said things on this show, and I've said, you're stretching. That's a stretch for sure. But one of the more fun segments to get our takes on is buy or sell, and how it works is like this. I'm going to give a statement for each of the 4 major sports leagues. If Dave agrees, he's going to say buy and tell me why. If he disagrees, he's going to say sell and tell me why. He gets to give his great takes and determine the order. Go ahead, sir.
All right, I know we only have so much time here, Ryan.
We got 25 minutes left in the show, and the last segment is just us two. If it gets shortened, so be it.
Start with the National Basketball Association, because we could be here a while, my guess is.
Right, because Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez kind of changed this buy or sell sometime on Thursday, and we can go one or two ways. We could just say buy or sell the Minnesota Timberwolves, because that seems to be like the big question. But I'm going to go a different direction, and we can work kind of both of these in if we want.
So Mark Lore and A.J. Rodriguez.
Right. That's how I heard it said by some media personalities. But it is Mark Lore and Alex Rodriguez. But instead of just saying buy or sell the Minnesota Timberwolves, which we could, and feel free to talk about it, I'm going to go a different direction that you kind of led me towards, and I'll clue you in as to why. Buy or sell that this ownership squabble could have any negative impact on this great season.
So I'm going to buy it, and in the heart of hearts, I want to sell it. We are going to find out the laser focusedness of the head coach, of the assistant coaches, and more specifically, the players. Ant and Conley have to really keep everybody's laser focus. Kat strikes me as somebody that would be distracted by this, but those two needs to keep everybody focused, and Chris Finch needs to make sure that the fallout from the stuff that they don't have any control over doesn't impact them at all. But it's Minnesota sports, man. You're going to find something weird, and Gobert is going to be, he's going to have 4 points and 3 boards. You can say, I was worried about Alex Rodriguez, and that just can't happen.
So you made some great points, but I'm going to sell it, because my hope is that the players that play this game for the Minnesota Timberwolves care about as much about it as I do, Paul Allen does, and other people that have brought it up, because, they have to talk about it because it's a story, but you talked about what you can control. Off the court, you can do nothing with. Who knows if every single Minnesota Twin is upset with the Pohlad family for the money they don't spend. They still go out and win games.
Yep.
If last night was an indication, sign me up for this ownership squabble. They dominated a Denver team.
How about that, too?
Now, I know Jamal Murray didn't play, and if you listened last week, he's the guy in the division that I would take on the Wolves, and he's a difference maker. I get it. But I don't think this ownership squabble makes a lick of difference this year. Now, what does it do beyond here? Could do a lot. This year, you can't derail this in any way. But let's go a different direction with it while we have a little bit of time. Who are you siding with? Because this is just interesting that, this is seller's remorse with Glenn Taylor saying, wait a minute, we're good now, and the place is packed, and the value is exponentially more than what I sold it for. Or there's been word before that A-Rod and Mark Lowry didn't have the money, couldn't meet the deadlines, and if that's the case, then, a contract is void. You hear both sides. Are you siding with anybody in particular, or do you care? Because I told you when you called me and said, can you believe this? This is so Minnesota sports. I said the only person not involved in the actual transaction that should really care is Kevin Garnett, because he hates Glenn Taylor. He won't be in the rafters anytime soon if Glenn sticks around.
So I think what we're seeing is old school business and new school business.
Yes.
Like, because it doesn't bother Glenn Taylor to just cut ties here, right? Because that's what he's done in business his whole life. If there's a decision that needs to be made, he makes a decision, moves on.
Right.
But
if this is truly the franchise value is elevated and you goofed, then I have to side with A-Rod and Mark Lowry, because I can give you something for $20 and find out it was worth $200 and ask you to give me that back, and you shouldn't.
No, you shouldn't. But see, the new school would be much more communicative,
right?
Much more trying to get things done together. And Glenn's like, nah, you had some stuff and you didn't take care of it.
They gave each other a like on Instagram. They thought they were communicating just fine.
Correct. And so I think what we're seeing is old school versus new school. But God, I think that I side with Mark Lowry.
I think
Notice how I said that, would you?
I think I want to, but I think when I think about Glenn Taylor, no matter how good or bad of an owner he might be, the Minnesota Timberwolves have remained the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Because he cares about that.
I never trusted that piece the whole time. Now, I know you said Mark Lowry, and A-Rod is the one with the big Seattle connection, but I just thought, how long are they going to be here? And now I don't think I think that if Glenn Taylor's in charge. Now, do I want somebody with the star power of A-Rod that might draw other stars to come to this market? Yes. So I don't know if I side with anybody yet.
So I think the NBA, the two big markets, Vegas and Seattle, they're going to expand there because the expansion costs are going to be so outrageous,
right,
that the NBA itself is going to make great money. So if Seattle's one of those teams, where does A-Rod take them? You know what I mean? He can't go play in Omaha. I suppose Nashville.
You bring it back to Vancouver.
You could bring it back to Vancouver. But so there's limited places they could go. The biggest problem is the arena, right? And again, I'll say it. I heard it from Judd Zalgad the other day. He said the issue with A-Rod and Lowry is if they're struggling to put money together now, do we want owners that are house poor, that bought the house and can't keep it up? And that, I didn't even think about that, but what a huge red flag that is.
So here's the thing. There's a question as to who truly owns the Minnesota Timberwolves. The most important part right now is nobody in the Western Conference does, and that's fun to talk about.
That's true.
1 down, 3 to go. Where are we going next?
All right, let's go to the NHL. Just makes sense to go that direction next.
All right. So your beloved Gophers play today against BU.
Yeah.
Billy Watson brought it up. Sure, they wish they had Brock Faber, etc. They don't. Minnesota still does. The Minnesota Wild do. Buy or sell that he's going to win the Calder Trophy?
I'm going to buy it, even though because he's got, I think people will have to be talked into Faber, the voters, but I think his numbers and value can be utilized for that. Like Bedard's the flashy guy, right?
Yeah, he's going to win it, by the way.
But I think if you sat down with people who are voting and said, okay, well, here's what you got with this guy, here's what you got with this guy, because Bedard hasn't played the whole season. Faber has. Faber's played hard minutes on a defensive group without their best defender and without their second best defender. He has been a rookie thrown into so Faber's the better rookie.
Right.
But Bedard's the shiny thing. So I think he's going to win it, but you notice how I said that.
Right.
I'm going to buy it
on clearance.
Sort of.
You're going to have seller's remorse, maybe.
Yes.
Because I'm going to sell, and I may be the one with seller's remorse, because every point you made is tremendous. That's exactly why I don't think he's going to get it.
Yeah.
You gave me every reason he should. I completely agree with you. I don't trust the people that vote. I think the people that vote look at the shiny stuff.
Things,
just like you said. You got goals, you assists, you got points, you got jaw-dropping plays.
You got jaw-dropping.
Defensemen don't make jaw-dropping plays. They do if you're a student of the game and you're looking for something different.
Yeah.
To the casuals, they don't. Now, I'll admit, when it comes to NHL hockey, I'm probably a casual, especially compared to the other three. But you got people that know even less than me that I think get a say in this. And I also look at market size a little bit. I know that Minnesota is the state of hockey, but Minnesota sports is not Chicago sports.
Right.
The media, I'm gonna sound like Trump here. The media is gonna be to blame Big Leaf for this because they're going.
It's the look that you gave that people.
The radio's not a visual media, but I think that might be the best shot I've taken at a Trump impression. It wasn't good, but it was probably my best. But the media outlets are going to lead with the market and the draw that they want to.
Yeah.
That never comes from here.
Right. Who does ESPN lead off with? That's the one that'll win.
Right. The Timberwolves might get the number 1 seed in the West, but if the Lakers get out of the play-in tournament, the series is going to be covered from the Lakers' vantage point, not ours.
100%.
I think it's going to be similar here. 2 down, 2 to go.
All right, let's go with the NFL now because Twins are in session.
All right, so the NFL, this is more tongue-in-cheek than anything because I don't even know if you know this, but Greg Joseph is no longer a Minnesota Viking. He's a Green Bay Packer.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
Okay, so we know that the Minnesota Vikings are where kickers seemingly go to die. Greg Joseph, I don't think anybody's terribly upset that he's not here. But buy or sell that you'll see a rejuvenation of Greg Joseph with the Green Bay Packers because that would be the Minnesota sports way of thinking about it.
So does that mean, in essence, we traded Greg Joseph for Aaron Jones?
Which we fleeced him on that one.
I think he's the guy he is now. I think Greg Joseph was a good kicker. Like, he wasn't great. He wasn't absolutely knuckles. The question is, we don't have a kicker. You know who's available now?
The other Carlson.
Well, which would be perfect going around.
We have that kicker named Romo now. We signed that XFL guy.
With the 3 names.
Right.
That's right. No, but if you bring the Carlson guy back, his older brother can send him all the merch.
Right. So here's what I think. I'm going to sell. You're not going to get a rejuvenation of Greg Joseph's career because there's nothing to rejuvenate. He was never an all-world kicker. Yeah. It wasn't like Morton Anderson and Dan Bailey who came here to kick and we went, what happened?
Yeah.
There isn't much to draw upon. We're going to get the Dan Barrero version of this. You're going to get a Greg Joseph game winner for Green Bay against us, and the we didn't need him is going to be in high gear. That's just to be expected.
It'll have to be 50 yards out. He's pretty good 50 yards out. It's the 50 yards and in that he struggled with.
Right. All right, Major League Baseball, buy or sell. Carlos Correa is paid like an MVP. Buy or sell, he's on the verge of an MVP caliber season.
Well, we have played exactly one game, and if he continues to play like he did the other day, he is. The thing is that if the Twins are good, he's the straw.
Yep.
Right, and so if the Twins get to the playoffs again, and then maybe advance a little bit more as well, he's probably the reason. Like Buxton could have a great season, but the reason that Buxton can be not the number 1 guy is because of Correa, right? And so I think that if he plays with some semblance of the other day. I mean, the same thing he said about Faber. ESPN ain't going to lead with him. So the Twins will have to play really well.
I'm going to buy. It's just my gut feeling for the season that this is finally going to be the Carlos Correa that everybody went, wait a minute. We signed a player of this caliber to come here after being somewhere else. We didn't draft this guy. We didn't, home grow it. We didn't acquire him back when he was nobody and turn him into somebody. I think this is finally... You can critique all you want, the Pollad's lack of spending, and I get it. I don't care enough to let it wreck my love of the team and the sport, but I get it. I think this is finally going to be the one that they're going to go, well, that worked out rather well. It took a couple years, and it took a couple phantom signings elsewhere, but I think they're finally going to get what they're looking for in Carlos Correa.
Here's my question. Will the funny guys deliver his MVP trophy in a garbage can?
Ooh, that would be interesting.
Yes.
If they didn't, would they not know it was coming? Is that the question?
I like that better. They, instead of announcing it, they just hit the trash can 4 times.
And he'd go, wait a minute, I won something. I'll tell you what, we got a winner of a final segment. Drawing Lines, courtesy of Arola Architecture Studio, is going to round out the show. This is a good segue to it. I just talked about Carlos Correa kind of being my, not just Twins MVP choice, but potentially an American League MVP contender. So maybe I'll sit out the first go-round of the last segment, but we're going to give Twins awards that we normally give during the season. We're going to give our predictions all of one game in. Final segment of what's been a great show. Stick around. We close out the Northland Sports page. Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook will be right back.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
Back here on the Northland Sports page, Dragging the Line by Tommy James and the Shondells means it's time for Drawing Lines, courtesy of Arola Architecture Studio. It's the final segment of the Northland Sports page for this Saturday. Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook, we hope we've left our imprint on your Saturday because during the break, something certainly left an imprint on Dave Cook. Radio's not a visual medium. We always say we've got faces for radio. This would be one of those times. Share with everyone what you were doing and how it's left its mark on your day so far.
Well, I was going to just put my head down for a second, and we have a roll of paper towels here. So I held up the paper towels, put my forehead on it, and just rested there for a second, and sat back up, and Brian started laughing. I'm like, what are you laughing at? Apparently, I have a circle on my forehead.
Yes, you do. It reminded me of those old movies where you'd see like the binocular or the telescope trick where they look through it and they pull away and they've got black circle around their eye. That's kind of what you've got, but Cyclops style, right in the middle of the forehead.
Nice. Very nice.
So you'll win an award maybe for best unintended costume, but for drawing lines, we're going to do our Twins Awards. Now, we do this kind of at each quarter poll of the season. We'll do it 40 games, 80 games, 120, and at the end. But we're going to predict all of one game in the MVP, the Cy Young, the Anthony Young, for those of you who don't know, basically was a lost cause. May he rest in peace. Most of the times he took the mound. Biggest surprise and biggest disappointment. But we got to do it rapidly. So go ahead.
How good was Anthony Young's stuff, though, by the way? He
to stick around with that win-loss record.
That win-loss
and if you look, at times his ERA wasn't bad. So talk about being thrown into bad situations.
Yep. All right.
So I can sit out the MVP choice for the Twins because it's Correa for me.
Yeah. Nope. And I think that's the logical one. But I'm going to go a little different direction, Brian, and I'm going to go with Carlos Santana. And
okay.
And the reason I'm doing that is Twins first base was the worst first base in the major leagues last year as far as defensive value. The guy can pick, right? And if he can solidify being, a 7-8 hitter, 6-7-8 hitter who can drive the ball a little bit and get on base, that changes the parameter of that side. And because he can play, that changes Julian's outlook, right? It's specifically Julian, because he struggles defensively.
Right.
And so if you can get a first baseman who can hold that down, I'm going to go with Carlos Santana.
I like that. So the Cy Young, the low-hanging fruit, and so far the correct answer, the only guy who pitched at a Cy Young level effort on Thursday, Pablo is that good. You've got an ace. Congratulations, Minnesota Twins. You may not have won or lost the Arise trade, although Arise, I think, to start the year is 0 for 6 or 7. So let's all hit the panic button on his one stat that matters for him. But Pablo Lopez is that guy. So he'd be the choice. But I'll tell you what, if the Minnesota Twins are going to be good or even great, the Cy Young for me needs to be the guy I have a man crush on, Bailey Ober.
I was going to say Chris Paddock, but for the same reason.
Right.
Like Lopez needs to be the guy.
Right.
But
he's Batman. He needs a Robin.
He does.
Preferably 3 or 4 of them.
Yes. And Ober makes more sense. But Paddock's got the stuff that if they can keep that glass arm healthy, that he could be that guy. Like, technically, in my belief, they have 2 guys who should be number 2 starters and 1 guy who is, right? So Ryan is, but I think the other 2 have the stuff to be that number 2 guy, and then Ryan can settle down into a 3 or 4 starter.
All right. Who is your Anthony Young? Who's the guy that's going to come in and you're going to go, oh, no, here we go. It could have been renamed in more recency and amongst the living, the Emilio Pagan Award, but who's that guy this year?
I'm really worried about Varlin. I just don't think as a starting pitcher, what we saw as a starter. So what we saw as a bullpen guy was lights out. But we saw him a starter earlier in the year, and you know what he did? He went back down to AAA.
Right.
And so right now we have these visions of the 1 inning, 3 strikeout, 9 pitch guy, right? But you put him in as a starter, and he can't throw 98 because you can't throw 98 for 4 or 5 innings. All of a sudden he's hittable. I hope I'm wrong. Like, Varlin's story is great, and seriously, the guy we saw in the bullpen is a lights-out bullpen guy, but they're stretching him out for the starter's role again.
I agree with you, and I have to change my answer. I started scrambling a bit because I had the same one as you. So I'm going to go kind of tongue-in-cheek, but you never know. And we made fun of this transaction when it happened because it happened on the heels of some of the bigger ones, Santana, etc. And you said, we got Daniel Duarte. And I do think that that's a tongue-in-cheek type transaction. But because of the current injury status of the bullpen, it's not going to be so funny anymore when he gets called upon a lot. And he had a good spring. But I think at the end of the day, he is who he is, and that might not be that great.
You know what that can tell people that listen to the show regularly? I texted you that.
Right.
There's no way I'd have got his name on the first swing.
Wow. I digress. It's been a good show. I'm not going to pick on you for that one.
All right, next.
All right. We've only got a few minutes. Biggest surprise and then biggest disappointment. Who do you think is due for that proverbial breakout season?
I think the biggest disappointment for me is easy. I think it's going to be Wallner.
Okay.
He scares me with his Joey Gallo approach to hitting, right? But I think the biggest surprise, if he produces like his style of play, Austin Martin got called up the other day. Like, he could stick in the major leagues and this year as the guy that plays a little bit of short, a little bit of second, a little bit of center field, like Nick Gordon, except with on-base skills today. And I could see him doing what Castro did last year, and that's being another glue guy.
Right.
And now all of a sudden you got 3 guys that can play 4 positions, and your depth is pretty good.
All right, so my biggest surprise is only going to be one half of a player's game because I don't think it'll surprise anyone if he succeeds offensively. But I think Mr. Julian's going to figure out the second base position with the glove.
He's a second baseman for a decade then if he does.
Right, and you've got a legitimate star. You've got, hopefully, Knobloch without the attitude issues. Mm-hmm. And a guy who might have an approach the way Justin Morneau talked about it, kind of like Joe Mauer, with a guy that walks a lot and a guy that knows the strike zone. Now, I know at times during Joe Mauer's career batting third that produced the yawn. Well, now the game doesn't have enough guys like that, and Julian might be at the top of the lineup. We'll take that.
Yeah, he might be, and again, he's not going to be paid the way Mauer got paid. Like we've talked about a million times. If Mauer's making a normal rate, his production is fine, but he was paid to be a
Or if he's
superstar.
still a catcher, his production was fine. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, as much as we say, well, that production would have been fine, everybody else is saying it was. He got in on the first ballot.
He did. That's a different conversation.
So the biggest disappointment, and I hope I'm wrong, obviously all these negative categories, the Anthony Young, and then this one, we hope we're wrong, but I just got a hunch it's Ryan Jeffers. He's such a good guy that you root for, and he had such a good season that was such a pleasant surprise a year ago. I still think he's a guy that doesn't see the strike zone super well, which is weird to say for a catcher because you see it from the other vantage point. His chase rate is huge. I just think he's going to be a problem offensively, probably not defensively.
Think about that.
It's going to mean that your right now overpaid second catcher, Mr. Vasquez, is going to have to come up and live up to the contract expectations.
And Jeffers has always been known as an offense first catcher. So
right.
if he struggles then, apparently the guy that got a AAA is pretty good at both. So not a superstar, but pretty good.
Let me ask you a question for one more potential disappointment. Yeah. And I have to ask the question of, would it really be one? Because Max Kepler, for a while, has been disappointing. Second half of last season would be the giant kind of misnomer in the statistical line, if you will. If he fizzles, is it a disappointment, or do you just go, that's the Max Kepler we know?
Yeah, I think if he fizzles, you say, well, that second half last year was fantastic, and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right?
Or go play in another market in your second half this season if that happens.
I just think that's his issue. His issue is that we give him a lot of extra credit points for whatever reason for being a way below average offensive right fielder. He can catch the ball, no doubt, and he had two. And we always can look at 2019 and say what could have been, but it's been hard to see. And for everything Twins fan, and frankly for Kepler, I hope that the second half he figured something out because I'd love to see it.
Right.
But we haven't.
Speaking of second halves, how about second halves of games? We missed Duran. Everybody likes the entrance. Everybody likes to see 100 miles an hour coming out of somebody's hand. He's not available for a while. How sold are you on Stewart and or Jax?
Not at all.
Really? I love Stewart. Jax for me is an anxiety attack.
Yeah, well, Stewart's glass. And,
there's that.
And Jax is unknown. Correct. And there's, who else is there? You can't throw Thielbar because he's hurt as well.
He's hurt as well.
So is it Alcala?
And who also has had an injury history. Most of the bullpen is more or less an infirmary right now.
Correct. And that's why you bring up a ton of that. That's why your closer is your fifth starter right now, Brian.
Right.
Move Arlen into that. Now I'm settled down. I've seen him in the bullpen. He's fantastic.
All right, we'll finish drawing lines with our Twins predictions with this. Just a simple yes or no, and by how much? Do they win the American League Central?
Yes.
By?
2 games.
That's it. A la 1987 over the Royals.
I think Detroit's that good.
Okay. I'm going to say they do by a half dozen games. I think Detroit hangs with them till September and then just kind of goes, we're too young to realize the brevity of this idea.
Yeah, but they've got some veterans right now that have one. Kenta's there. We know how Kenta thinks, how he pitches in games that are important. I think he's the type of leader. He doesn't have to be the number one starter. They got 3 guys better than him, but he's one of those guys and frightens me a little bit.
So we are making these predictions on March the 30th. These are the kind of predictions going into game 2 that you can either look back on and laugh. Hopefully we're looking back on it and smiling instead.
Yeah, right. September, we're going to look at these and go, Dave, were you drinking?
Right. No, I don't think he was. He's got a nice circle. No, your circle's faded now. But the show is faded as well. Time for us to go. This was a lot of fun. Thank you very much to Bill Watson. Thank you very much to Dave Hoops. Justin Morneau, we need more of that.
Yeah, you're welcome anytime.
Absolutely. This has been a fun one. Listener interaction was at an all-time high today. Everybody enjoy the weekend. We'll see you next Saturday. Go Twins. Have a good one.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players. Pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.